Ah, the 1960s, a time of miniskirts, Beatlemania, and what people called the golden age of air travel. But was it really golden? Spoiler alert, no, it was more like tarnished brass. Buckle up because today we're taking a turbulent ride through the not so glamorous side of flying in the 1960s. Frequent hijacking risks. First up, let's address the elephant in the room hijackings. By 1969, hijackings were so common they practically became a trend. In fact, there were 86 hijackings in the US alone that year. Security was laughable. No metal detectors, no bag checks, so anyone with a grudge and a weapon could waltz onto a plane. Take, for example, the infamous case of Arthur Gates Barkley in 1961. Barkley, a disgruntled former employee, hijacked a Continental Airlines flight and demanded $100 million, a sum so absurd it left authorities scrambling to figure out how to respond. He carried a briefcase he claimed was a bomb, though it was later revealed to be a bluff. The situation ended without casualties, but it exposed just how unprepared airlines were for such incidents. Then there was the case of a young Cuban exile in 1968 who hijacked a National Airlines plane, forcing it to divert to Havana. The pilot complied, as there was little choice when faced with armed demands. These incidents weren't just terrifying for passengers, they also highlighted the glaring lack of aviation security measures. Hijackers often got away with their demands, making the practice almost enticing for those desperate or daring enough to try. The phrase taking a flight had a whole new meaning back then, and passengers, well, they probably crossed their fingers and hoped their flight wouldn't take an unscheduled detour to Cuba. Lax safety regulations. First up, safety, or rather, the lack of it. Flying in the 1960s was like playing a game of sky-high roulette. There were no black boxes, no reinforced cockpits, and the air traffic control system was, let's just say, more analog than your grandma's record player. Mid-air collisions weren't unheard of, like the tragic collision over New York City on December 16, 1960, between two planes that killed 134 people. Here's what happened. A United Airlines DC-8 and a TWA Super Constellation were on converging flight paths in heavy clouds. The DC-8, traveling at over 500 miles per hour, missed a critical holding pattern instruction and collided with the TWA plane. Debris rained down over Brooklyn and Staten Island. The DC-8's wreckage crashed into a church and several buildings, creating a fiery disaster scene. It was one of the deadliest aviation accidents of its time and led to significant changes in air traffic control, but not before many lives were lost. The aftermath was harrowing. Witnesses described flaming debris falling from the sky, with rescue workers scrambling to navigate the wreckage in freezing December temperatures. Investigators discovered that outdated air traffic procedures and communication lapses played a major role in the accident. This tragedy became a catalyst for reform, including the adoption of radar-based systems and stricter protocols for air traffic controllers. And seatbelts? Sure, they were there, but enforcing their use? Not so much. Let's just say turbulence wasn't the only thing that could knock you out of your seat. Smoking on board. Next, let's talk about smoking. If you weren't a smoker, tough luck. The cabin was basically a giant ashtray in the sky. Imagine being trapped in a metal tube with dozens of people puffing away. No escape, and no ventilation system strong enough to save your lungs. By the end of a long-haul flight, even non-smokers probably needed a nicotine patch. Here's a fun fact. Some airlines actually handed out free cigarettes to passengers, because nothing says relaxing flight like secondhand smoke in every breath. In fact, it was so pervasive that one flight attendant joked they could light a cigarette just by holding it up in the cabin air. Smoking was allowed everywhere. Aisles, seats, even near the lavatories. One passenger from the era recalled that the smell was so overwhelming, they'd arrive at their destination smelling like a chain smoker, even if they hadn't lit up once. Racism and discrimination. And then there's the issue of discrimination. Airlines back then were all about exclusivity, and that wasn't just about first class seats. If you weren't white, traveling could be an uphill battle. For example, African American passengers often faced difficulty booking flights or were subjected to discriminatory seating practices. In one documented case, a black family traveling in the early 1960s was told their confirmed seats were no longer available, only to see those same seats given to white passengers moments later. And let's not forget the flight attendants. Airlines had strict rules. They had to be young, white, slim, and single. If you got married or gained a few pounds, bye-bye career. Some airlines even weighed their attendants regularly to ensure they met appearance standards. Pan Am, for instance, had a policy requiring stewardesses to maintain a weight of 140 pounds or less, and they conducted surprise weigh-ins to enforce it. These policies didn't just enforce racial and gender biases, they also reinforced the idea that air travel was an exclusive club, designed to cater to a very specific demographic. Minimal in-flight entertainment. Today we have in-flight movies, Wi-Fi, and games. Back then, you'd be lucky to get a single movie on a tiny projector screen at the front of the cabin. Didn't bring a book or magazine? Congratulations! You've unlocked the achievement of staring out the window for hours. One passenger joked that the only entertainment on their flight was counting the number of times the flight attendant ignored their call button. Passengers had to get creative to stave off boredom. Some brought along crossword puzzles or played cards with their seatmates, while others resorted to placing the aisle for lack of anything better to do. Airlines occasionally tried to spice things up, like TWA, which once experimented with live music performances on select flights. Yes, you heard that right. A live band squeezed into the aisle, serenading passengers at 30,000 feet. The idea didn't exactly take off, but hey, points for trying. No refund policies. Missed your flight? Too bad. In the 1960s, airlines had a no-refund policy that made today's budget airlines look generous. If your plans changed or your flight was overbooked, you were out of luck and out of cash. Passengers often reacted with frustration and outrage. One notable incident involved a businessman who missed his flight due to a delayed taxi and demanded a refund at the airline counter. When refused, he reportedly caused such a scene that security had to escort him out. Another passenger famously wrote a fiery letter to an airline only to receive a polite but firm no, along with a coupon for a free drink on their next flight. These policies left many travelers feeling helpless and infuriated, adding insult to injury for those already grappling with the era's other flying woes. So, the next time someone waxes poetic about the golden age of air travel, just remember, it wasn't all champagne and caviar. Sometimes nostalgia is just a fancy way of saying, thank goodness for progress. Thanks for flying with me today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below about your worst flight experience. Until next time, happy modern travels.